there is some data that was done at Harvard on people that lived in Oregon and that were exposed to wildfires last year. And what they found was that among individuals that were, living through all that air pollution during the bad wildfires last summer, there were a significant number, I think 20,000 excess cases of COVID attributed to the wildfires and 750 excess deaths. And what that suggests to me, well, two things. One, you've got to protect yourself from that kind of severe air pollution. But two, things in our environment probably completely under our radar, never got picked up by a doctor, can cause lung inflammation that will make you more susceptible to viruses and other kinds of injury. So to me, that suggests that we have to be very conscious and mindful about how to protect our lungs and make sure we're breathing clean air. So how do we do that? Well, I think that there's kind of two buckets to think about this in. There's outdoor air pollution, and then there's indoor air pollution. From an outdoor air pollution perspective, part of this is going to be where you live, and you can't completely control that. Living in high traffic environments or some areas like Salt Lake City where there's inversions, it can be really tricky. But what I would say is there are some common sense things you can do, like there is an airnow.gov website where you can look and check the air quality on any given day. I would recommend, if there's a day you need to go outside and I don't know, do some yard work or something, don't pick the bad air quality day. The other thing is just some common sense measures, like, I go out and I use this analogy a lot. I garden a lot. I would never think of, well, sometimes I do, but usually I put on gardening gloves. But either way, you can kind of wash your hands, right? We can't do that with our lungs. So you need to think about wearing a mask more often as like your gardening gloves for your lungs. If you're going to be cleaning out your dusty basement or your dusty garage or doing something else where you think there's likely to be dust kicked up, you're cleaning up a toner spill from your printer, anything like that, we all have masks now, so it's easy. You want to wear a mask just temporarily, if you're dealing with something where you're going to be keeping stuff up. Other simple measures, you're driving and it's a really bad air quality day. Put the car ventilator system on recirculate as opposed to fresh air, which normally we all love fresh air. But if it's a bad air quality day, you don't need to be sucking that kind of air back into the car. From an indoor air perspective, there's actually all sorts of things that can be harmful for the lungs. So like if you're getting your house repainted, look for low VOC paints. If you're having new carpets installed, ask that they air the carpets out before they get installed to decrease the risk of those kinds of bad chemicals getting into the air before you breathe them in. I know many of us are running HEPA filters now in the home. If you're going to do that, you need to make sure that you're changing the filters and monitoring them for mold and mildew so that you're not making yourself sicker as opposed to healthier. Another simple thing you can do is, if you've got a gas stove, make sure you always turn on the exhaust fan with the gas stove. This doesn't apply to electric stoves, but it does apply to gas stoves. If you've got a wood burning stove in your home, I grew up in Idaho and we had a very old fashioned wood burning stove that we used to heat the home in the winter. There are newer kind of cleaner EPA approved devices as opposed to sort of the really old fashioned stove that I had growing up that are going to decrease the amount of indoor air pollution that you're exposed to, even cleaning products. The EPA actually has a list of like what they call safer choice cleaning products, never mix your cleaning products. So why do I think all of this is important? I have to admit that for some of this, I wasn't quite as careful about it before I read the book or before I wrote the book. But in doing all this research for the book, this isn't the kind of thing they ever taught me in med school. We never talked about this kind of stuff. We wanted to protect ourselves from getting to being exposed to further pro-inflammatory environments. So we want to try, to keep our, even with pulmonary fibrosis, I think we want to keep our lungs as calm as possible. We all know that patients with pulmonary fibrosis can get flare-ups or exacerbations, and the cause of those exacerbations isn't always clear. Sometimes we think maybe sometimes they're caused by viruses, but we don't always detect a virus. But we do know that patients with pulmonary fibrosis can be prone to these sudden pro-inflammatory events. Sometimes we treat them with steroids, for instance, to try to get the inflammation calmed down. But for me, it's very, it's kind of common sense. And some of the data that's come out since the pandemic started has really begun to alter my thinking about how we need to be, all of us need to be proactive in thinking about the environments that we're in, and just making sure that we're, trying to keep, bad air and, air pollution, both indoor and outdoor, away from our lungs, so we can try to keep this as a low inflammatory environment as possible.